At the same time, there are other subsystems of the universe that may not be repelling as much. They have minimal repulsion. They may have even some attraction, but they still need to be kept together. They could even be neutral bodies. They don't really attract, but they need to stay together. You know, they don't attract or repel, but, you know, they need to be staying together. The force that keeps those kinds of components together is called the weak force. So these are the four that have been identified up until this point by scientists and mathematicians and physics. So there has been a study through generations of humanity. And what Brother Booker is basically addressing here in terms of the connection with the Shabaka, giving its historical time kind of setting, is that it was always there in the Shabaka stone. But in relatively recent times, yes, I was finishing the definition of the weak force and the fact that humanity has been looking for it, and basically the relatively short past, the people with the solution, of course, had been under siege and under all kinds of trying moments, and so have been put in a position that they were not really looked upon as the ordained source of that knowledge. Like Brother Booker had pointed out, the solution had been, buried already in the Shabaka stone. And it would then seem that there is some level of destiny then that the African, wherever he or she is, was supposed to come up and share that with the world. But because the African, ironically, was the least expected to do that due to one lack of information or another, they were not considered at all. As a matter of fact, physics and mathematics, especially mathematics, which our ancestors were used as a source to bring it to the world by the Almighty God, you will be surprised to know the level of African people getting degrees in those areas. Certainly in physics is quite similar. Of course, as is very clear in history, geometry was what our ancestors did probably better than anyone that has lived on the surface of this earth. Not only did they do the theoretical developments, but they practicalize it in terms of the pyramid and stuff like the Shabaka stone and the use of lasers and sophisticated kind of incredible dimensions and extensions of mathematics or geometry beyond the level that most people are familiar with. It's as if it's actually a spiritual expression, which is why the English author, who wrote a book, The Fingerprints of the Gods, Hancock, called the book the fingerprints of the gods. In other words, that the awe which overwhelmed him in looking at the practicalization of geometry, okay, and the other sciences by our ancestors were so high, such a high level, that he couldn't simply believe that that could be done by human beings. That's a testimony to the kind of sophistication and God's blessing that has been bestowed on our ancestors. But ironically, in the present time, it's hard to see the evidence of that in terms of the number of graduation of people of African descent in mathematics or geometry or physics or even chemistry. The name chemistry, is actually the science of the Kemetic people. That's where the word came from. Chemistry, chemistry. And when you put math and chemistry together, you get physics. Okay, so there are quite a bit of evidence in terms of historical and even, goes beyond history in terms of a spiritual, sign that says, yes, these are the people that were actually ordained to bring such information, and the importance of a unified force is actually going back to the concept of the Almighty God, because that's the most awesome force. And, when you're looking for a unified force, you are indeed looking for the Almighty God, the Creator. That's the author of force. That is the entity behind any motion that exists in the universe. And so unified force is the world. Unified force is the universe. Unified force is the embodiment of creation. And that's why it is so important. We can transform within a conservation, as we talked about, but that we are basically part of that unified force. Okay, we could go from one form to another, but we come from one original source, and that's basically what the search for unified field theory is about. But it takes some history. It takes the current realities in education and the university systems, where, for example, in my search, when I was starting out for mentors in terms of people of African descent, it was basically non-existent. So like I said before, this development is thoroughly unexpected to the world. No person would have ever guessed in any way that it would be somebody of African descent that was going to tell the story. And as I've shared with most people that I talk to, the reason that is the case is because the ancestors, have the keys to the truth. And so the rest of us who came later, one way or the other would continue that to tell that truth. And so, this is the context in which we're discussing the unified field theory. Because it's a central force within the creation itself, it has so many implications. And like I said, when you can link it to the force of creation itself, which is the Almighty God, then you can understand what I'm talking about. People, for example, want to go back to understand creation. Is it the Big Bang Theory? What happened when time, when the time began, okay? And so you can see then how it is important not only to find the unified field theory, but to use that theory to go back in time to actually get a better sense of how the Creator actually created the universe. Okay? So it's not a trivial matter. It's not a trivial undertaking. It's not a frivolous one either in terms of its importance. So it is within that context that I began my search very young when I started, as I mentioned in the interviews before, basically in the high school. But before then, the elders who I studied under had already been giving me a lot of information in terms of, my position, as a people, as a member of a people, of a race, what my job was supposed to be. By looking back and seeing things, I guess I must say that I may have been quite fortunate, to have that kind of education and information, which of course made my search a lot more focused and more, inspiring and more energetic for me. So, of course, it began, formally or semi-formally at the high school level, okay? But even in elementary school, I tried a few things, thought-wise in terms of thinking about, what to do with mathematics and so on. To go along that direction. I didn't formally know it at that time, but I knew, somehow that was where I was headed. So then in the high school, one of the early things that I remember in the high school was taking a formula, which I've shared with many people. If you were adding numbers from 1 to any number, you will, for example, 1 plus 2 is 3, 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. Suppose you continue doing that, let's say you want to add up to 100. Of course, if you have some time and paper and pencil, you can do it. I mean, you know how it can be done, okay? But if you don't have time, you just think about it and say, yeah, it can be done, but I don't have time to do it right now. So then what I wanted to know is how I could find a simple way that, to do that. And so that took me into sitting down and trying to find a formula, a mathematical formula, which in many ways is transformation. You transform that tedious problem into a form that's also geometry. That's the gift of the ancestors. You transform it into a space where it is easy to do, okay? And so after struggling with it for a couple of days, I came up with a formula, which was, if the number that you're stopping was n, as an arbitrary number, then the sum, adding the number from 0 or 1 to that number n, will be